Take 1,000,001!
The 1,000,001th time.
The 1,000,001th time! Hello, everybody! Welcome to Roll for Effort. I'm here with Joe. I'm Jason Scranton. Today we're talking table leaders. And before we get into this is a free channel. We don't run ads. We don't have a Patreon. If you enjoy this and you want to show your support at all we ask is that you share this with your friends. You know, like, subscribe, share our channel. Tell us in the comments what you think. It's the juice that keeps this thing rolling. And remember that together, you know, we're improving our hobby one game at a time. That's the whole point.
Exactly.
So, today we're here to talk about criticism. Another user comment-driven subject, so we do read those, and thank you for the fuel. So, Joe,
Yeah.
oh my
Thank
God.
you for that tasty juice box.
All right. So, the original comment was asking about the difference between, or talking about the difference between cavalier criticism and constructive criticism. So, what do you think?
Right. Well, I think this fire right here sucks. It's just terrible.
That is so mean.
And that, folks, is cavalier criticism. We're not talking about cavalry. There's nobody mounted on horseback riding in with lances. Although I guess it could be a similar style. It's that cavalier approach being a very direct, a very kind of lack of, and I'm having a brain fart, a lack of courtesy,
Yes.
lack of caring.
Yeah, I think you're nailing it. I mean, it's all about, if you were to Google this out and look up what does cavalier mean, you know, it's rushing through and showing a lack of proper concern and being very offhanded.
Concern, that's what I was looking for.
Yeah, concern.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah, it is very direct, and it doesn't take into account, a person's feelings. It doesn't take into account the amount of time they might have spent doing it, or even the direct purpose or the intent for it. Because this fire right here, to the artist that did that might be exactly what they were looking for.
Yeah.
To a T. And the Cavalier doesn't take any of those things into account whatsoever.
Yeah, and it often is kind of done with like a disregard to the fact that this is just your opinion too. It's not like no one has appointed you divine judge of fire art, you know?
Exactly. Exactly.
Because I think that's part of it too, is that I've sort of experienced a lot of times cavalier criticism, it's not just offhanded, it's sort of it's kind of almost in opposition, like it's like a my way or the highway sort of approach, and that's not healthy for your table.
No, not at all. That's being a bad table leader, unless you are directly asked, looking for criticism. Be as cavalier as you want to, be as direct as you want to. Don't take my feelings into account. There are times when that's specifically asked for, and there are other times when it's given without question or thought about it at all. The art world or fashion, things like that nature. Cavalier is very much the go-to for any form of criticism in those events.
Yep.
In those worlds.
And we've talked about this. Joe and I have talked about this offline before. I mean, Joe and I have been the targets of some very cavalier, inappropriate criticism in the past. And, one thing that I found is that creative personalities, people who work in the creative business industry, it's business to them, right? Like, this is how you make money, and they're sort of totally desensitized, and it's appropriate in those environments to just be direct and say, this is working, this isn't working, because it's tied to money, right? Like, there's no consideration of feelings involved. And and I think that it's especially if you're really comfortable with someone who works in that industry, you may get some very cavalier criticism for them. And all I can say is, try not to take it too badly, because they see the world through that filter, right? It's like if you're a carpenter and you have the hammer and the nail, right? And that's how you solve problems, because to them, that's how you do it. Even though reality check, your game, your table is not I mean, I guess unless you're like professionally, Critical Role or something like that, it's not that situation, right? Like it should be done not as cavalier criticism, but as constructive criticism. So let's flip that around, Joe.
Right. Yeah, let's flip it to the side where it's not about, dollars and cents, where money's not on the line. You don't have that dollar bill filter on. The type of criticism more commonly found at a table at a group of friends, gamers like us, is more of that, it's taking the feelings into account. These are people that you respect. These are people the tastes that they have, their strengths, their weaknesses. And it's a much, I guess for me at least, my opinion is it's a much nicer and better way to go about using criticism. And again, to go back to this flame, like it could be, like I'm not a big fan of that fire. Like, it just, something seems off on it. Maybe it's the color. Like, have you tried, could you splash a little bit more red or a little bit more orange in there? Or maybe some more like fans of flame coming out to the side to give it, a little more lively approach. Something more along those lines it's taking into the account what they've done and kind of pointing out, maybe some things that you liked about it, I guess, a little bit as well. Like it's not so just flat out, that's garbage. That's a big garbage fire. Like, there's a whole big change to it. Right? Yeah, it's definitely a different approach.
Yeah, it is different, right? I think it really comes in like three distinct parts. I think that constructive criticism, one, it has to be valid. It has to be a valid, well-reasoned opinion. And when I say valid, I'm actually riffing off of the thing that Joe said in another take that we took of this where my audio wasn't turned on and I screwed it all up. Which is that it needs to be like where you asked for it, right? Like criticism that you've asked for. And Joe, are you still with me?
Yep, I'm back now.
Okay.
I lost sound for a brief moment. My bad.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, I was just saying, it has to be valid, well-reasoned opinions, and that comes from, if the person's asking you for criticism, that's a valid time to give criticism and that kind of thing. So that's
my request is a great one.
That's right. So that's like part one. It needs to be valid and well-reasoned. Part two is that I think that if you're really being considerate of the other person, you try to balance it with both positive and negative comments. It's not just a big shit sandwich of like, wow, your campaign was terrible. That was a terrible campaign. What were you thinking?
Right? Drop the shit sandwich and go for the compliment sandwich.
Yeah.
I liked this. This could have needed work, but this other thing was also awesome. It's a much nicer way to deliver these types of things.
Yes, and not just in criticism, like in life, almost anywhere. It's better to sort of balance it out. If you're gonna rain fire down on somebody's, hard worked, well thought out, or at least, or they thought it was well thought out, or they wouldn't have presented it to you. Campaign, think about the good things and the bad things, because that will also help tone yourself so that you're keeping things in line. Because the third part of this is that it needs to be done in a friendly manner instead of an oppositional manner. Right?
Yes.
And that second part, unless you're involving both negative and positive concerns, you're probably coming across as oppositional and not, friendly.
Yeah, confrontational is not the right approach when going into criticism, unless you intentionally want to be cavalier.
Yeah. So I think the big take home that I have from all this is that there are some principles of leadership here that are involved. And whenever you're dealing with criticism, one, remember, because you're going to get hurt, right? Like you're going to eventually somebody's going to hit you with cavalier criticism. Try
right below the belt.
Yeah, try to remember that it is their opinion, right? And frankly, their opinion only has the value that you place on it. And their opinion could be wrong. You could have 2 or 3 people at your table who love what you're doing and that one person doesn't. And that's okay. but outside of that, the principles here that really matter is be friendly, do it in the spirit of being helpful, and be courteous about it and kind when you're doing it. Those are the things that make it constructive criticism and not cavalier criticism.
Right. And also, if you can, criticism shouldn't be a public event. Like, it's one of those things it's a lot easier to take when it's, more private and one-on-one. When you have a whole group and you're just shoveling criticism into one person or into this other person, then all of a sudden it kind of becomes like a public event, and that changes the whole reception of that criticism, because then the person receiving it all of a sudden feels on the spot. It's that nightmare of I'm standing naked in school. Everybody is looking at you. So it's the presentation. If it's one-on-one, is a whole lot easier to give and take than it is in a group setting as well. That's another point I'd like to put there.
I completely agree with that. In fact, I cringe a little bit inside when I hear, because a lot of other channels, personalities will talk about running tribunals, right? And here's the thing. If you're running a tribunal, it should be to clear the air about criticisms and things that have already been discussed in private. It should not be to drop, a brick on top of people involved. Don't do that. Don't put somebody on the spot. It comes across as down-dressing. It comes across as opposition or even malicious. If your relationships are already tenuous, or if you're not really that in tune with that person's emotional state. And it drives me crazy because it's a total disregard for the fact that you don't know that, in the background, Joe just had the worst week of his life. His dog was run over by a tractor. Space aliens came around and blew up his car. Or some other terrible tragedy that is hard to even fathom that's specific to Joe happened in his life. And unless you have that kind of connection to that person, you should be really courteous to people and be kind to them. I mean, that's...
Because that one little criticism after that week could be back to the hammer nail. It could be that nail in the coffin of boom, that broke me. The straw that broke the camel's back.
Yep. The next thing you know, you're
last weight.
You're done. You're done with the group, right? I don't want to participate in this anymore. These people are assholes.
Right. That's another thing. That difference in a tribunal. Tribunals should more be about things that involve the entire group.
Yes.
It shouldn't be a focus fire on one single thing.
Yes, exactly. Not a down dressing. It should be, and that's what I was saying. It should be the thing that comes after, right? So let's say that somebody gives you, and remember, this criticism goes in all directions. It can be player to player. It can be player to game master. Tribunal equals tribe, right? So it's all, none of this is specific to just the GM or just the player. It goes in all directions. And when, let's say that you have that situation where somebody is that scene that we had, where something happened to the merchant's daughter, I'm sorry, but that kind of was trigger to me, and I have a hard time dealing with that sort of thing emotionally. Let's not do it again. Please, I'm asking, right? And that's the kind of criticism more you should be oh, okay. Constructive criticism, right? They're not here to mess on your parade. They're trying to honestly come to you about a thing that's bothering them. And then that's where you can say you know what, this is important. Let's have a tribunal about it next week. And you just go and you basically say, hey, guys, I'm letting you know that I felt like I crossed the line that last time, and we're not going to do that again. Because I know this made at least one other person feel uncomfortable, and I don't want anyone to feel that way. And some of you may have felt uncomfortable needing to come to me, and that's cool. So we're not going to do that. Instead, I plan on doing this, and this in the future. Does it sound good to everybody? Everybody nods their head.
Yeah,
that's an appropriate tribunal.
A really cool thing you did there that I just want to call attention to, because in this scenario, it was a player that came one-on-one to the game master and said, I had a problem with this, it was kind of triggering. And then at the tribunal, in that tribunal scenario, you pointed out that a player had come to me. There was no naming of names. It didn't put somebody on the spot.
Yeah.
So there was like no connotation of everybody going like, oh man, so this guy, like he got a little, it takes all that stuff out. Like nobody has to worry about that. And I think that's a very like kind of key point in the tribunals. It's not singling anybody out. It's as a tribe thing. And the game master is kind of at that point taking that burden on himself and saying like, you know, I know someone did have an issue with this, and I wanted to point out that I went too far, and I'm not going to do that in the future. Kind of like that's fantastic. I just wanted to highlight that. That's golden.
Yeah, and that's an extreme situation, right? It doesn't have to be that extreme. It could be. I mean, you get criticism for all kinds of reasons, right? Like, you know, I thought we were going to be running this kind of campaign, and it turns out we're kind of doing this. I'm not sure if I want to keep going forward with it. You know, that might be a situation where you might have tribunal with the group and you talk about maybe changing the flow of the campaign to something else, you know, or exactly. Killing it and starting off with a different thing. You know, it's so much, right, that we couldn't possibly cover it in this conversation.
Right. And this is all things like both sides of the criticism line there. These are things that every game master and as Jason pointed out, every creative type, this is something you are going to get. There's no avoiding it in this, you know, in this world, in this life.
Yeah, it's going to happen. So, you know, remember those really important leadership qualities. You know, friendly, helpful, courteous, kind. You know, don't be
empathetic.
Empathetic. Just don't just be off the cuff. Like, oh yeah, that was crap.
Yeah. And the excuse of that's what my character would do. No, stow that.
No, yeah. That's your no. Not here, bro. Not here. I feel. I mean, unless you're just a super pro role player, you are your character.
Yeah, pretty much.
In a lot of ways.
Much.
Like, I don't feel. I typically. I'm not. I don't want to get myself in trouble. There probably are some extreme situations here. Like, there are no absolutes, right? There's plenty of shades of gray in this. But I think that's a different. You know, that should be maybe that'll be our next talk, Joe. Maybe we should talk about the whole concept of like, well, that's what my player would do.
Yeah. Really kind of dive into that.
Yep. And it works the same way for like a GM, right? Like, well, that's what the NPC would do. You know.
Yeah, exactly. Well, still, like the GM is all of the other characters. Yes. So I mean, yeah, that's what my character would do. Kind of definitely fits there too.
It does.
Like,
it does.
Hey, folks, if you'd like to see a video on that, or if you've got ideas for something else, like there's a comment section right down there. Get those typing fingers out and make some magic. We'll read it and we'll probably even cover one of those topics.
Yep. Give us like 20 seconds of your life with a comment. We'd appreciate it.
Right? Share a juice box with us.
Yes, share a juice box with us. All right, I hope somebody out there on the internet land found this to be helpful, and we appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for watching, and I can't wait to see you again next week for our next Talking Heads video, where we are going to do a little bit of System Curious with Lamentations of Flame Princess. If you're interested in seeing how a character is built from the ground up, tune in and let us know what you think. Anyway, talk to you later.
Thanks, guys. Bye. Thanks, everybody. Guys and girls.
Guys
all
in
between.
Yes.
We're not singling anybody out.
Also, people who don't identify with a gender, you're okay too in my book.
Yep.
All good.